So I guess you and I sit here.
말해, 널 모를 것이다. Someone has introduced me.
Good morning. Welcome to UC Santa Barbara. We are so glad to have you here for this very special event with His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. This morning, this morning's lecture on the nature of mind is unique an opportunity for us to expand our knowledge of Buddhist traditions, philosophy, and scholarship. This is an area of academic strength of UC Santa Barbara. Our Buddhist studies program has flourished within the interdisciplinary environment of our campus. It draws on the strength of its home department, our highly regarded Department of Religious Studies, our Center for Interdisciplinary Humanities, and many other departments and programs in humanities, fine arts, social sciences, education, engineering, environment, and the sciences. We have with us today many of our community members, donors, and friends who have helped us build a world-class teaching and research program in this area of study. We gratefully acknowledge all of your support. There have been so many people who have helped us make today's event possible. I'm afraid I simply just don't have enough time to thank everyone who should be thanked. But the fact that all tickets were sold out within 2 hours is testimony to how strongly you support us. I would like to mention that my colleague who invited Dalai Lama, he's a former translator for Dalai Lama. His scholarship is known around the world. He is the 14th Dalai Lama endowed chair in Tibetan Buddhism and Cultural Studies, Professor Jose Cabezal. I would also like to recognize our Executive Dean of the College of Letters and Science, David Marshall. Dean Marshall has been a strong promoter for this event every step along the way. Dean Marshall. And I must also acknowledge the extraordinary efforts of Director Celesta Bellici and our arts and lectures team, and Gretchen Favre, Nicole Clanford, and Stacy Janik. We feel so fortunate to have the opportunity to learn from Dalai Lama today and to be inspired by his message and scholarship. The Dalai Lama is an incomparable Buddhist teacher. In every aspect of his life, he embodies the principles he teaches. Perhaps the best way to describe these principles is to remember that he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989. I might take this opportunity to mention that UC Santa Barbara is known for our Nobel laureates. Among the audience today, we have Nobel laureates in physics, in chemistry, and in economics here to welcome His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I don't know where you are, my colleague, just wave your hand. To introduce the Dalai Lama, we are honored to have with us the chairman of our UC Board of Regents, Richard Blum. Regent Blum is the founder and the chairman of the American Himalayan Foundation. The focus of this nonprofit organization is on providing education and healthcare, as well as supporting cultural and environmental preservation for the Himalayan region. The friendship between the Dalai Lama and Regent Blum goes back more than 3 decades. I cannot think of anyone better to provide this morning's introduction. Please welcome Chairman Blum.
Your Holiness, Chancellor Yang, thank you very much. This is a difficult moment for me to express how I feel, because the 2 things I care the most about, His Holiness, the Tibetan people, the people of the Himalayas, and the University of California have gotten together. And I must say, as chairman of the board, you're supposed to kind of be equal about the different campuses, and having gone to Berkeley, spent a lot of time at Berkeley, when it comes to Buddhist studies and religious studies, Jose Cabazon and this campus and your faculty is the best place to go. You've gotten so good that Berkeley's a little bit jealous, and they're trying to do better, and that's okay too. As you know, the first professionalship, the Dalai Lama Studies Chair, was started here. This is a very short trip for His Holiness to the United States, and we're honored that he's going to visit 2 campuses here today, and he'll be speaking to the Greek Theater in Berkeley tomorrow. I've been given a ridiculous task here. It says, relate some personal observations and history of your relationship with His Holiness, and you've got 2 minutes, and I've known him 38 years. Well, first let me say that we were reincarnated at about the same time. No, it's true. We're only 10 days difference in age, but we won't, I don't know. Everybody knows when he was born, but I don't talk about when I was born, except there's 10 days difference. The only difference is we know who he was in his last life. He was the 13th Dalai Lama, who was a wonderful man. And of course, he was then reincarnated once again as the Dalai Lama. What we don't know is who I was in my last life. And I must have done something really bad to be reborn an investment banker. But I've tried to make up for it since then through our American Himalayan Foundation and our work with the university. As I think many of you know, my wife is Senator Dianne Feinstein. And thank you. I'll let her know you care. We first went to visit His Holiness in Dharamsala in 1978 when it wasn't possible for His Holiness to visit here. I think we had something to do with clearing that up. And his first visit to the United States, in fact, was to San Francisco in 1979. Not only is His Holiness one of the finest people I've ever met, but also the Tibetan people, by and large, are spiritual and kind. And we must help them preserve their tradition and learn from them. That's what this is all about. Contrary to what the Chinese propaganda will let you believe, the Tibetans in exile have developed a democratic government in Dharamsala. My wife and I have engaged the leadership in Beijing for a long time, trying to help resolve this issue. And unfortunately, we haven't made much progress, but we will never quit because all this is much too important. But we have, through the International Campaign for Tibet and our American Himalayan Foundation, which provides humanitarian and educational assistance we have 170 projects throughout the Himalayan region, and I would say probably half of them are for the Tibetans, either in Tibet directly or in exile in refugee camps and other centers in Nepal and India. It was very easy for me to fall in love with the Tibetans. In 1968, the first night out on the trail, I stayed in a Tibetan refugee camp, and small children sat on your lap. They were either born there or carried over the mountains. It was amazing. They spoke English. And I guess those of us who had that kind of introduction were gone for day one. So it was through that and my interest that we met His Holiness. And of course, he will tell you his religion is rather simple. It's about kindness and compassion. And we've tried to learn a little bit about that and tried to thank His Holiness and his people by the projects we've done over the years. So I think I've gone way over my 3 minutes, but anyhow, thank you, Your Holiness, for being here. It's now your turn, and you have way more than 3 minutes to talk.
Of course, the topic about nature of mind and the sources of my talk, mainly Buddhist text. So therefore, at the beginning, I want to recite one shloka, verse, the salutation to Buddha. That verse wrote by Nagarjuna. Kange tusin yeso ne dawa do jebang be jere dan be chene de jebe kwatam ta la cha che lo. Dear brothers and sisters, of course, Chancellor, and my longtime friend, and the Dean, and also longtime my friend, although he no longer as a monk, but sometimes I refer still Bhikshu. So, indeed, I feel great honor talk a large number of people and in the university
campus.
So great honor. last 2 days, some what called flu or cold. So a lot of liquid come from here. And my voice,
voice.
a little bit unusual, but okay. I think usually my voice, I think a little better than today's voice. Now, originally, lecture about some Buddhist concept, here a bit longer. So at that time, the concerned people arranged this text. Now, since the duration of my lecture shortened, so now I will not go through that text. Now, I have the topic, nature of mind. Although all major religious traditions carry same message of love, compassion. And with that, spirit of forgiveness, tolerance, and also self-discipline out of awareness, the negative thing, sort of negative consequences. So knowing that and some kind of self-discipline. And also in material field, more contentment. As these practice, same in all traditions. So now these loving kindness or compassion, these are mental quality. And also try to reduce anger, hatred, fear, suspicion. These negative, destructive emotions also part of mind. And basically, the joyfulness, pains, these two things are experience or feeling of mind. So basically, all major tradition, and all, of course faith, also part of mind. So all major tradition, carrying message or practice or method to improve mind. Same. But now because of differences, the theistic religion, non-theistic religion, the theistic religion, the emphasis, importance of faith. Faith towards Creator, towards God. That is the way of approach. And non-theistic, such as Jainism and Buddhism, and some other ancient Indian traditions, such as Sangha, one part of Sangha philosophy, is non-theistic. So non-theistic's essential idea is something like self-creation. And also the concept of law of causality, Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. So therefore, ultimately, this something like creator is within ourselves. So then naturally, not this body also important as a basis of the mind. Now, for example, human body is the basis of human mind. With this, with the connection with the body, then we can say it's a different mind of human being, mind of animal, mind of insect, like that. So that, and also the sensorial levels of consciousness entirely based on the part of the body. Like that. But ultimately, body action, including voice, because of the verbal action, ultimately depend on the motivation. So motivation means mind. So, according to the law of causality, things which we want and things which we do not want, all ultimately related with our motivation, our mind. So now, in order to achieve happy life, joyful life, we have to take care about our mind, motivation. Now, in order to overcome, in order to reduce suffering, we have to deal with negative emotion or destructive emotion, which ultimately bring these unwanted things. So therefore, special emphasis in these traditions about mind. Now naturally, logically, when deal with mind, we should have thorough knowledge about mind. Then also, within the we call mind or consciousness, I don't know. Within that, there are so many different
categories, types.
Different types of mind. Thousands. Then all these destructive emotions, the only way to deal these destructive emotions only through mind, not through matters or injection or surgery, not like that, but only through another mind. Now, for example, anger, hatred will not reduce through some drugs or alcohol. Maybe sometimes sleep, maybe. Even if there's a lot of anger, sound sleep may help reduce. The next morning, your anger a little bit smaller. Actually, they basically, all these negative, destructive emotion, they dealing these destructive emotion in order to reduce. The only way is opposite mind, contradictory mind. First, realize the contradictory sort of mind, then increase that. That's the only way to change or to reduce these negative emotion. So, in other words, in order to reduce the destructive emotion, the only way is to increase these constructive emotions. That's the only way. So therefore, again, we have to know what kind of mind that kind of thought is ultimately destructive. And what kind of mind or emotion ultimately constructive. So we have to know that. Then big question, destructive emotion can eliminate or not? Now this is a big question. In order to find answer for that question, we have to know the ultimate nature of mind and the basis of all these destructive emotion. Then you get some understanding, the possibility of elimination these destructive emotions. So therefore, in Buddhist text, there quite a lot of information about emotion, about mind. And then also, I think particularly in Tantric teaching, since the Tantric teaching also involve some, physical, usually we call Zaluntigli.
Yeah, some manipulation and application of physiological forces.
So therefore, you see, it mentioned the sort of different level of mind,
Subtleties.
like grosser level of mind, and more subtle, like that. That mentioned only in Tantric text, in Tantric teaching. So for example, just this moment, our sensorial consciousness or mind fully functioning, active. Although simultaneously, the thought also go simultaneously. But sensorial consciousness are much more dominant. Then during dream time, the sensorial consciousness no longer function. Only thought, another level. Then during deep sleep, without dreaming, another level of deeper level of consciousness, of mind. So then also, when at the time of fainting, even stop breathing, another level of deep level of mind. Then at the time of death, all physiology, physical things, now for example, the heart beating stop, then blood circulation in the brain within a short moment cease. Then all the neurons now no longer function. So all grosser level of mind then stop. I think something like human mind then no longer there, stop. But the only indication, we ordinarily we can notice that some people after death, at the time of death, physical level, death, clinically recognize or declare death. But the body remains very fresh. Now, one example, my own senior tutor, after death, about next 13 days, his physical, his body remained very fresh. And then recently, one senior
No, a Tibetan Lama, the former throne holder of Ganden.
I think last year, after he
Passed away.
passed away, I think next almost 3 weeks, his body remained fresh. So fortunately, at that time, as soon as I heard that Rinpoche's body still remained fresh, so then I asked one medical center in Dharamsala, since we already kept some machine to check a person who remained in that state. So some simple machine available. So I sent a message to them, and then they sent some people and carried those simple machine and put some wires on the head and like that. So although they very detailed analysis not yet sort of finalized, but seems that after a few days, clinically dead, some weak electric sort of movement.
Signals.
Signals.
Some electrical signals were there.
In brain. So it is, they say, very unusual. So that we believe that still that person's innermost subtle mind is still in the body. So some influence in the body. So that is we call most subtle consciousness. So there are many levels. Now here one thing. Now I shifted to the Tibetan. Ngamba zhenanglia tagye tangzhe sa shegare. Gembegi lumudengi. Tangata longamandengi tagye tangzhe. Di shenju zane 패지 지원모도 이거 그걸로 기디로 시작이야래. 다이네 뭐 근데 날이야. 치승 참모 얘나 루모데 이미 켜셔야 돼. 치승 참모리 루모데마도 개미기 시작을 말해. 다도 차로 치면 계시도 다도가. 라방원도 제윤도 개미기 남샤시. 다 참여가 만 내윤도 얘네 개미기 시작을 루모데 코라를 했습니다. 시바. 다 나게 흉나는 샤윤데 치승 참모데 내저게 덮기 개발을 유튜브를 했어. 이니 치승 참모 미게 원래 남의 유튜브에 매버려. 자들이인데 뒤에 개발시도가 미게 로드즈 차디 러시 제주 군도 유여의 링달라 미게 남도 용내. 러시 제주 군도 가사에 제라 아니 동버시 내가올라 미게별로 개 매버려. 사실 미게별로데 라볼로베 나는 것도 믿어가. 이네 개와데 뉴멀 해지 개별로데 개와를 교수하시도가. 그래서 되게 가르치고 있어요 이나. 시바 참여가 내윤데 개별로 가서 탑식 쓰면이나 개별로 개퇴하지. 미게별로 개퇴하면 되겠지. 개발시 되는 거.
So, talking about the classical Buddhist sources for understanding the nature of mind, one important source is the Abhidhamma literature. And in the Abhidhamma text, particularly in the Abhidhamma Kosha, which is the Treasury of Knowledge by Vasubandhu, when he talks about the death process, and he talks about how the various moments of consciousness, one give rise to another consciousness, and also the transition from a virtuous state of mind to a neutral and to a non-virtuous state of mind, and vice versa. When he was explaining this, in this context, he explains that the moment of consciousness at the time of death can be, depending upon different individuals, and at that particular situation, some of them can be a virtuous, some of them can be non-virtuous, and some of them can be simply a neutral state of mind. However, in Asanga's Abhidhamma Samuccaya, another Abhidhamma text, compendium of knowledge, here he says that if you really analyze the moment of consciousness at the point of death, at that very subtle point, the state of mind can neither be virtuous nor non-virtuous. It is beyond that dichotomy of virtue versus non-virtue, but rather it is a completely neutral state of mind. And then another source for the Tibetan understanding of the subtle levels of consciousness is the Vajrayana, the tantric teachings. And there it is acknowledged that even that subtle moment of consciousness at the point of death, for a yogi, an experienced meditator, it is possible to affect that state of mind from a neutral state to a virtuous state. So the point here is that the destructive states of mind, the non-virtuous states of mind, they can only operate up to a level of consciousness, and beyond which a very subtle the subtle levels of consciousness arises, then these non-virtuous and destructive emotions and thoughts can no longer function. So that suggests that the destructive and non-virtuous mental states are dependent upon there being comparatively a grosser level of consciousness.
So, now I feel the complete sort of understanding or explanation about mind, I think we should include the tantric text.
The Vajrayana perspective. No.
So now, in Guhi Samanza, Tantra text, Sangju Zagyu, ma Sangju Zagyu ma re, Sangju Gyu Gyu re na, kare, dore chawan ai, Gyu re da kada, Gyu ni Gyu shi chawan cha, sara, Gyu ni Gyu shi chawan cha, Gyu ni naba Sumju des, shi dan, 다 대신 가서 누르게. Now I fail to recite the text. I can't remember now. Kind of many 시규, 탑규, 미초밤, 레비규, 유숨셰트.
So in one of the Vajrayana texts, known as the Guhyasamaja Tantra, there is an explanation of what is meant by the word Tantra. And Tantra is explained in terms of a continuum. So when we say continuum, what kind of continuum there can be? So it identifies a continuum in the sense of a basic continuum of consciousness.
균이 균시 차와 차스. 균은 남아 숨도 되스. 시다 대신다 정도는
So, and then it explains the meaning of Tantra, the continuum, in terms of the basic continuum and the method that one can apply, and then the resultant state that one can achieve from that method.
That actually, the consciousness, the level of consciousness, 3 categories. One, basis. One, not tackling that mind, another level. The third level, out of dealing with the mind, finally can be completely purified mind. So this also can say the first reality, present reality, and explanation about that I consider science. And then second, the tackling. Application. That's method. That's philosophy or concept. The third, as a result. Like Four Noble Truths. When Buddha first stage, because the wheel of Dharma, which is start, the Denshing all of them are child, they were child, they would have devas, and devas sum said the she nature. She did it be in any Langdon Judoki, child deva. Langdon Judo, Tedachavina, Devu, any Sabashi was Midio Shiva, young to Sundo.
So this is comparable to understanding the Buddha's first public sermon on the Four Noble Truths. If you look at the Buddha's actual sermon, he presents his teachings on the Four Noble Truths by way of 3 repetitions. In the first stage, he identifies the specific nature of the truths, the truth of suffering, its origin, cessation, and the path that leads to the cessation. And then in the second round of explanation of the Four Noble Truths, then he talks about the functions of each of these, knowledge of each of these truths. So the fact that suffering must be recognized, the origin of suffering must be removed, cessation of the suffering must be actualized, and the path must be cultivated. So this is second round, he explains what needs to be done with that understanding. And then in the third round of repetition, he explains what are the results that one may attain as a result of application of that knowledge. So here we can see that even in the first public sermon, Buddha's teaching on the Four Noble Truths, he presents the teachings in the context of understanding the nature of reality, the first stage. Second is the application of that knowledge in one's daily life and practice. And then the third is the result one will achieve from that path and application.
So usually I make sort of 3 sort of categories. Distinction of Buddhism. Buddhist science, the first part I consider as Buddhist science. Second, Buddhist concept or Buddhist philosophy. Buddhist concept or philosophy come on the basis of today's reality. So that's Buddhist science. Then Buddhist concept or philosophy. Then Buddhist religion. Because of that, because of possibility to elimination of all negative emotion, then worthwhile start some practice. So here in this text also, the surely, right? So they did what? 다들 정신 디셔야 돼. 되네 니버디 된지 집에 있는 자네 랑도 죽도 셔야 돼. Teletene and Rebunas. Yeah.
So in the text that was originally planned to be commented upon, in fact, we read a similar presentation here. So it says that the actual explanation has three sections. The first is how to analyze the fundamental ground of the mind and how to identify the innate primordial state. So that corresponds to understanding the nature of reality. And then searching for the hidden dimension of reality by analyzing how the mind arises, abides, and moves on.
Correct.
So and then the second one says, having effected the introduction, how to implement that into practice. And then the third one says how the levels of realization and experiences arises on the basis of that practice.
And shoot the question you
Two.
question you now in the past, I think more than 20 years, you see, we had some sort of serious discussion or seminar with scientists. There is some sort of dialogue or discussion, or actually mutual learning. Of course, basically it's four fields: cosmology, neurobiology, and subatomic physics, such as quantum physics, then psychology. So, and quantum physics also is in some similar view. Cosmology, basically same, but then some particular sort of description about the world, flat, and in the center, Mount Meru. These are up-to-dated. Of course, the Buddhist text, the different description about cosmology. So therefore,
so in a sense, the Buddhists have a liberty to choose which one they want to take.
Then some of the quantum, such as quantum physics. Oh, really has a great interest over 2,000 years, sort of what's the Buddhist concept, and modern latest sort of
findings,
scientific sort of
findings,
physicist sort of finding. There are many similarities. Then, in any way, about the physical part, there are many things to learn from modern science to Buddhist. So really worthwhile, listen or study from them. Then the neurobiology, although the Buddhists, particularly in Tantrayana, say mind and energy. So quite interesting, you see, to investigate the relation between emotions and the neurons and these things. But as far as the physical side, the modern science, much more advanced. So very useful to learn from them. But the connection between neurons and consciousness, mind, still this is not very clear. The modern science or psychology, usually they call soft science. I think very young, very, very young, something like kindergarten. The ancient Indian sort of science of mind seems much advanced. So a lot of information, something useful to modern scientists. So therefore, my scientist sort of friend, they provide that simple equipment to test. So although since I think almost 10 years ago, some equipment is put there, but then just we wait, someone who should die. But then when the equipment available, no one die through such sort of experience. Then when in the past, it's quite a number of occasions, such happened, but then mission not available. So now last year, two things combined now. So in any way, so these things really interesting to the further sort of investigation or acquiring our knowledge through joint effort. It's very good. So now the mind. Now here, since our meeting with scientists about mind, one thing in India, perhaps I think more than 2,000 years, perhaps around 3,000 years, there is some knowledge about sensorial consciousness or mind and yilukasa.
Mental, sensory versus mental experiences.
So in this modern science, this is a
So in the course of our conversations with scientists vis-a-vis classical Indian thought, one thing that seems to be clear is that on the part of the Western science and its kind of theoretical traditions, there doesn't seem to be, unlike in the classical Indian context, a clear distinction drawn between sensory level of experiences versus mental level of experiences.
That's very, very important, make distinction. The sensorial consciousness or mind very much related with the body, with the body element. The mental level, as I mentioned earlier, the grosser level very much related with the body element, but more subtler, more autonomy. And then the motivation strategy,
And also when we talk about the underlying states of mind that motivate behavior, and then we're not talking at the level of sensory level of experience, it was talking at the level of mental level of experience.
제가 팬인데 등에게 이루 똑같이 자주치야라 옹비시에 간에 딱지시다 찍고 시작하고 그러셔.
So therefore, in order to understand the functions and operations of this mental level of experience, which is really what determine a lot of our experience of happiness and unhappiness and harm and injury and so on, simply focusing our observation and study on the sensory level of experience is not going to be adequate.
Now, since Tibetan Buddhism, actually the pure lineage of Nalanda tradition, it is very clear that because in 8th century, although I think interest about Buddhism since 7th century developed and try to learn already began, I think. But more sound basis,
Systematic.
Ah.
Systematic.
systematic sort of establishment of Buddhist study or Buddhist practice, 8th century. The person who actually is carrying the main responsibility to teach and also give ordination, that is Shandarakshita. So on the invitation from Emperor, 8th century, Trisung Tezen, two Indian the important gurus come. One, Guru Pema Sambhava, one, Shandarakshita. So the main responsibility, as I mentioned earlier, giving ordination and also give study lessons, mainly carried the Shandarakshita. So this Shandarakshita, very well known great master, one of great master of Nalanda, and holder of Madhyamika philosophy, and also as the Shandarakshita, great logician. So I think since beginning of
So Nalanda monastic establishment began towards the beginning of the Common Era.
Then Nagarjuna come from that institution, and many other. And among them, the great philosopher as well as great logician come from
Lineage.
in that lineage. So this Shandarakshita, philosopher, Madhyamika philosopher, at the same time great logician. His sort of writing available in Tibetan translation shows such a wonderful logician as well as a philosopher. So naturally, the main introducer of Buddha Dharma in Tibet, one of the top scholar or great practitioner or great monk, bhikshu from Nalanda. So naturally, if the teacher, a philosopher or logician, and he wants his student should be that kind, isn't it? Logically. So therefore, I think till now, in Tibetan tradition, basically the Nalanda tradition, very clear. I often is telling people, I myself, when I study our tradition, mainly at the young age, 6, 7 years old, then we have to learn, then already begin learning by heart those root texts. So my own case, at that time, 6, 7 year old, no interest about Buddhism, no knowledge, as my
Richard Blum.
Richard Blum is mentioned the reincarnation of 13th Dalai Lama. I don't think. So you see, when I was young and start learning by heart these texts, no interest, great reluctance. My only interest is to play. So therefore, my tutor have to keep one whip. No, At that time, you see, myself and my elder brother, we both monk, you see, we both studied together. So my tutor kept 2 whips. One whip, ordinary whip, one whip, yellow whip. So that yellow whip should be considered as a holy whip. The yellow holy whip for holy person Dalai Lama. But you can imagine, if that holy whip used, I don't think any holy pain. I think pain is same. So out of fear, I study. I carry these study, these texts. So the point is, all these texts, which I learned by heart, and also he, similar. And my bhikshu, the ex-bhikshu, also you see, all the same sort of experience. All these root texts wrote by Nalanda masters. Nagarjuna's text, or Aryadeva's text, Arya Asanga, Basubandh, like that. So all originally is wrote by Nalanda master. Of course, meantime, we also study commentary. Among the commentary, many Indian commentary, as well as Tibetan commentary. So we also read these things. But real texts, all you see, come from Nalanda, like that. So therefore, and then these commentary, whenever some important point reach, they always relying on quotation, one of the Indian well-known
Indian
master, like that. So therefore, it is very clear, the Nalanda tradition. Then also, Pema Sambhava there. So he also, I think he take special sort of responsibility to introduce Tantriyana. Although we believe they, or say among Tenjur, which text wrote by Indian masters, various Indian masters, which translated into Tibetan, about 200 volumes. Among them, quite a number of tantric texts or commentary wrote by, in name of Nagarjuna, and also Aryadeva, and many others. So therefore, so Tibetan Buddhist tradition, Nalanda lineage, and meantime, complete form of Buddhism. That means Pali tradition, all the Vinaya Sutra, original text, the original language is Pali language. Then in Tadusana,
So amongst the 3 collections, scriptural collections known as the 3 baskets, one is the basket on discipline. So the Tibetan canonical collection, the text on the discipline basket are primarily based on the Pali teachings.
Then Shijin Dodi, Dodi, Pali in a
So within the 2 remaining baskets, one on sutra, the collection of discourses, the other is Abhidhamma or higher knowledge. For these, although there might be some specific Pali text, but primarily these were translated into Tibetan from Sanskrit language, Sanskrit sources. For example, in the Tibetan tradition, when we speak of Abhidhamma tradition, we speak of 2 systems of Abhidhamma, the lower Abhidhamma and the upper Abhidhamma.
So then, in Tibet, since 8th century, complete form of Buddhism, then introduce and start That usually we call Nganjur Nyingma.
The early translation school.
Then, 9th century, 10th century, 11th century, that church,
So during this period, the establishment of the Buddha Dharma in Tibet went through a turbulent and difficult period of degeneration.
And then Tibetan emperors sort of organized, emperor also then decentralized.
And also,
and
Tibet as a country became splintered into different smaller kingdoms.
Then Sarma, George
and then when around the time the Indian master Atisha came to Tibet, so this is in the early part of the 11th century, then what is known as the second phase of dissemination of Buddhism in Tibet occurred, and from this movement emerged other Tibetan traditions such as Kadampa school and the Kagyu school and the Sakya school.
Then later, Giluk tradition also. So all this, say, a complete form of Buddhism. That means,
so each of these lineages embody the complete form of Buddhism, which means that they embody the teachings of all the vehicles, including the Vajrayana teachings as well.
다 원주님의 겁네 디스고도 택발을 먹고스 가다 죄송한데 년도 랑제 택신 장습 시절이 근중된 배태바 숨제 되네 상악 and three uber yogas 거두 리직 택바 즉시 되네 마 어느 어디스 원주 탑지 택바스 택바를 먹고 시즌다 택바 중간에서 차상 됐어.
So to give an example, in the early translation school, the Nyingma tradition, the tradition speaks of 9 yanas or 9 vehicles. And 9 vehicles are identified as the vehicles of the disciple, the self-enlightened ones, Pratyeka Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas, the 3 external vehicles. And then within the Vajrayana teachings, there are Kriya, the action, Upa Tantra, and Yoga Tantra. So these are another set of teachings. And then finally, you have the so these are the external tantras or outer tantras, and then you have Maha Anu and Maha Tantra and Anu Tantra and Ati Tantra. So these are the 3 inner Vajrayana teachings. So we can see that there is a complete recognition of the complete form of Buddhist teachings.
So now the subtle mind is concerned. According Dzogchen, Dzogchen now here ma anu adi Dzogchen bos. Suzerata nyuma tenji jebe ribukundu sambose data di nyamne zonji sungo.
So in the Nyingma tradition, particularly from the Dzogchen perspective, the great perfectioner perspective, then one speaks of one gives teachings at the level of pertaining to the subtlemost level of consciousness, which is the innate mind of clear light. And there the focus is primarily on introducing the nature of mind at that level and bringing about the realization of that awareness. So one unique
Riba Yishi Siagita, Riba Degang Kuyare, Jenny, Zozo, Lubro Didela, Semtanice. Yet Damane, da Joyvation Yondenge, Didela, Riba, Gundusambos.
So one unique method in the Great Perfection tradition is based upon drawing distinctions between what the tradition calls basic mind versus primordial awareness or Rigpa awareness. And here the distinction is understood on the basis of those mental states which are more occasional and adventitious and more temporary, and these belong to a basic, they are kind of more of a fluctuating nature. They are characterized as belonging to the basic ordinary state of mind, whereas Rigpa awareness is characterized as being devoid of that kind of fluctuation. They are ever present, and also they are recognized to be a primordial quality of consciousness. So the distinction is drawn between these two.
Yang Zongshin Le Nangsigi, Zongshin Semde, Zongshin Longde, and the Mangang Des, and the Mangale Chigor, Nangor, Sangor, and the Yangsang Lami Kors, Sungdoa.
So, and within the Dzogchen teachings, of course, sorry, earlier I forgot that, so the Rigpa awareness that is characterized as being free from fluctuation, ever present and so on, is sometimes also referred to as Samandrabhadra, all goodness, and with no beginning, no end, and atemporal. So within the Dzogchen teachings, again, there are many different levels of teaching or many different classes of teachings. For example, the three primary classes of teachings are known as the cycle of mind teachings, cycle of expanse, and the cycle of instructions. So we see there are many different types of teachings even within the Dzogchen Great Perfection instructions. So this
예상 개바 루브르에다 치마 제딩에다 디 치마 사인도잖아요 양상 개바스
so
퍼싱 슝나리아 시싱 슝나리아 렁신 양대 에네 학자 양대 학면 양대 민의 양대 송도아 그래서 렁신 양대 디 토모번에 렁신 용선 양하는 데바지 차디어 봐 이네 렁신 용선 양하는 데바도 저들이 이르잖아요 렁신 용선 양하는 데바도 매나 루브르 지제기 양대 용식 말봐. 뺏드는 시 예상 개발된 매나 양상 개발 용토 말봐.
So this primordial mind, the Rigpa awareness, referred to as characterized as Samandrabhadra, is in fact described as primordial Buddhahood, and this is a primordial quality of Buddhahood that we all possess. And however, this primordial quality of Buddhahood is obscured by adventitious mental factors, which are the afflictions and the various thought processes. And through practice, when this primordial quality of Buddhahood is removed, when all of these adventitious mental qualities, properties, processes are cleansed, then one becomes reawakened or re-enlightened. So the attainment of enlightenment is referred to as the reawakening or attainment of enlightenment. And this is, in a sense, analogous to an idea in the perfection of wisdom teachings, where the nature of one's mind is referred to as the natural nirvana. And the natural nirvana serves as the basis for the possibility of attaining a nirvana with residue and nirvana without residue, which are constituted by elimination of the afflictive forces. So if there is no natural nirvana, then there is simply no possibility of the attainment of the nirvana, actual nirvana. So the idea is similar. So similarly in the Dzogchen perfection teaching, because of the presence of the primordial Buddhahood in us, it allows the possibility to gain this reawakening, attainment of Buddhahood.
다 태고를 뭐 구사야지 질 담배 남샤라 태고를 뭐 구야래서는 송어 좀 뭐임바 강사 지기 냠손 레베 그도라 태고를 뭐 구디 차상지 두사냐면 셔봐지 근데 순야지 용기 디샤야 오르샤
So,
다 데그르스lamno 딩시 고미야 디 년두기 태과서 디샤지 다 되네 딩시 스파스 가소래 딩시 냠네 10차로 담으잖아요 는 때내 양라 주니 룩중도 권에 아니 거주림 도림 도림부터 안에 곽된샤 임비야래 근데 아니 랑제가 되버지 되네 심지 친루 신학이 냠네 디디 다 신라마시 친루랑 투자다 디디 아니 전주스 배태버지 바로도 심배 두 바로도 심배 대배 장승 대배 냠네 디제 다 되네 하이 난저 고민도 자네 아니 저주기 두저 패배원도 제배이나 아니 다 저주도 세덤니 랑니 다 저도 될래 수 아니 시소 무줄래야 되지기 로나 숨기야래 자다 되는 인도산에 아니 지야 아니 오버 다 요가 디디 냠린치야 디디 rinpe pa, ta kanda thai nan jo sodu do de yare. Dene ne keba ma yoga, lung anu yoga sizane zalung nyamne di le yare. Dene ne zobo adi yoga sizane ene ribo sangde ke ta nyamne di chiati. Sa do sene kansa ji di de samolo ngonju chudu cheni teboren bo gugalo ta nyamne chiaji yokudoga. 그러나 롱진 주도 나리야 단 제리네 다 사브샤요리 남중에디 셰디 다 롱진 주든기 냠리 서버베다 타som 공부 제윤도 냐라 둔던저 되는 야고를 쓰기 둔던저디 때 아니 이신저디 때 애니데는 예수 고수문한 거 심리 예수디 거를 샥자체니 거를 샥부자도 쉬시라 뒤병도 제베이나 되게다 민음 장을 줘가 줘리 디디 체 엔지니어링 매게 아니 택존즈 신인즈 다 디디 아니 냠면 간만 뒤트야 주나 역사요.
so when we speak about 9 yanas or 9 vehicles from the early translation tradition's perspective, it's not a question of simply making a presentation about the general teachings of the Buddha, but in fact there is a tradition where the teachings of all the 9 yanas, 9 vehicles, are made relevant to the progress of an individual who is working on the path. So in this respect, then all the teachings of the 9 vehicles become relevant to the transformation of an individual person, a practitioner. So in this context, then the teachings and the practices of the Four Noble Truths correspond to the teachings of the disciples' vehicle. And then when the teachings of the Four Noble Truths are further elaborated, then the Four Noble Truths, the causal networks between suffering and origin and cessation of the path, when they are further elaborated, then the teachings of the 12 links of dependent origination becomes relevant. And here, both the reversal order and the sequential order of the relationship between the 12 links are explained and then meditated upon, then the practitioner is essentially implementing the teachings of the Pratyeka Buddha, the self-enlightened ones. And then when the individual moves on to the next stage, then the teachings on generating bodhicitta and the altruistic awakening mind, and based upon that implements the practices of the 6 perfections, giving a moral discipline and so on, culminating in the cultivation of shamatha, tranquil abiding, and also vipassana, a special insight. Then the practitioner is implementing the teachings of the Bodhisattva vehicle. On that basis, then one moves on to the next level, where deity yoga practices are brought into one's daily practice, and then, depending upon the levels of one's experience, the deity yoga practice becomes ever more subtler, and that's how one moves through these next three vehicles. And initially, for some individuals, it is said that the Kriya action tantra meditation may involve visualizing one's meditation deity in the form of a master outside, and then from whom one receives blessings and empowerments and so on. But gradually, as the deity yoga realization becomes more and more profound, one moves on to the next stages. And then finally, one moves on to the Mahayoga and Anuyoga and Adiyoga. Then there, the manipulation of the subtle energies and the channels and the drops, these practices, the more advanced Vajrayana practices, are also brought into the person's path. And then all of these, having established as a kind of a preliminary practice, one then moves on to the Dzogchen, the great perfection, Ati yoga practice, where the focus is really on affecting the realization of the Rigpa, primordial awareness. Therefore, when and this is in fact the approach that is presented in the 7 treasuries of Longchenpa, for example. And in fact, I normally recommend to people who wishes to engage in the great perfection practice to proceed by first study Longchenpa's treasury on the philosophical systems, Drupta Dzu, and then follow that with the treasury of wish-fulfilling jewel, Yishin Dzu, and then on that basis also study Semying also, the mind at ease, which there is a custom of doing the study and practice of this over a period of 145 days. So if each of the meditation cycles so each of these rounds of visualization, practice cycles are correlated to a day or week, and then there is a custom of doing this over an extended period of time in one stretch. That would be beneficial. And then gradually one can move on to the study of the treasury of the Supreme Vehicle, and then the treasury of ultimate expanse. And in this way, the approach would be very systematic.
So the point is, it is very important to have an overall understanding of the basic framework of the Buddhist path. So, of course, there could be an individual circumstances where some individual practitioners may have residual karmic forces, being brought from the previous lives, and then, in a sense, they are connecting with what is, moving on from already a certain stage, in which case a very specific instruction from an experienced guru or a master may be an appropriate approach. But generally, for most practitioners, it is better to approach from the basis of having an overall understanding of the structure of the Buddhist path, and then engaging in specific practices on that basis.
Then next, Gurju. Gurju lineage mainly come from Naropa. At the Lama Marba, or Tibetan, he received teaching from many Indian masters, and particularly his sort of what's the mathematical philosophy is concerned from Mitiba. So very clear, the Mitiba is the holder of the Jadakidis view, like that. Then the Kagyu Chakja Chambu, Sunzane, Chakja Chambula, Giluli Chakja Sunguyare. That is Chakjela Donga Nietzsche. 또 장배 온도 집에 자기 전부. 뒤도 오면 다 공부시거래. 다 갖다가 자기 시사지. 동아 되네서 제임 거야래. 초임 거야래. 단 투모 모임 버디 나 외세다 되니. 나로 추주고 난 게. 외세 거면도 봐. 다 대다. 다 대냠니 장야 될라. 아니 자기 전부사 마음 못 들어서 들이.
So
다 조조디 누물 현지집에 로티니 다 내종고 게임이야래. 남중고 게임이야래.
So one of the key teachings of the Kagyu tradition is the Mahamudra teachings, and although Mahamudra teachings can be found also in the Giluk school as well, but in Kagyu teachings, Mahamudra is the essential instruction. And when we speak of the term Mahamudra or the Great Seal, this can be applied in the context of Sutra teachings and also in the Vajrayana Tantric teachings. When it is used in the Sutra context, then Mahamudra refers to meditation on emptiness, particularly emptiness. And however, in the Kagyu teachings, when the term Mahamudra is used, it's being used in this Vajrayana sense, where the key point is to really utilize the innate mind of clear light into a realization of the nature of mind. And so the emphasis is really on the cultivation and development and also a realization of this innate mind of clear light.
다전에 사자 브로바네 마규니 네 다는 주한다 사자 남제 소야데 다 데뷔 다 규디 상하가 다 냠는디 깨도 그냥시의 제네 다 수도가 제니 다 능숨 유숨스 자 능숨 써야 되기 놀람지 쓴 거야래 나 용음배 나와 마타배 나와 되는 내저벌 답배 나와 전 송샤가 나와서 디 냠네 나라 다 안데 이게 안데 닝메 안다 년도 랑게 장심 디디 냠네 나다 탄디 찬대요래 다전에 뒤에 오버 요가 디디 미스 순둥케다 말셰 다전에 나 라메기 다 마은오 어디서다 디처디 다한테 사제의 소용도 아니 규숨신 따라서 라메간도 되기도 와 라메기 다전에 내가 좀 잘해 규숨세대리 덕이 안다 성두간도 농자야 되래 규규 탑규 데뷔규스 다 규숨 세바 세안디 다다 시기 말한줄로 여여봐 다 저번집에 죽네 아니 리버군도 상보스 송샤 단디 야 냠니 정당 도스면 용도 가버래 어디서 단지 저냥 도스다 도스면 용구지 이내다 광고 법서디 사회 터두기 내디 집버리샤 제니 또 규규 대 뭐서 냠용도 하는 어쩌시지 다 될래야 되도와 아도 사뱅송이 뭐예 똑본 것이 손점수 어세 규미쳐도 잘했어야지 다 될래야 군시 규규了 아니 질 남도了 차라 니체 다 차라 니스체 남도 참무티 디안의 이시적이야 말이야 제니다 나란조다 똑번 것이 산성수세하게 나도 그규 창신 공백을 이나야 그규 창신의 기록 창신 공백을 찍버리 냐라 난데기 제미주스 아니 마음바에 마음배 제절 저 똑번 의미수스 다들 내가 나르게 참바디에 바까 천육이 즉 똑바디에 바 결모 조세 마음배 남도 찾고 막 가서 봐 까지 다들 쉐바 소마 맞춰봐 대가 가나 산이로다 조서셔제 제윤도 남도 참으실래 되겠다 또 참으지 또 차라 니세가 또 참으서 들지 거래 다 도번 침배야 리복군도 상고병 어떠든 어처배이나 얘는 추구사지 송야지 요래 근시다 추구 현지야지 다 안데 대안의 현지기에서 말해 지단달로 도보 차와지야 달로 대강도 로 네트 체체 네트 체니 제베이나 안다 자베르 부치 측송내대 나리야 해대와로 상탈에 제송돼야 돼. 다 안데 쌤 해대 줘야 돼. 쌤 해대 줘세. 남도시나 각 개벽에 깨를 못 주시네. 다대 시바 소마 맞춰봐. 재미 정중 후보를 도시하지. 다 디간에 아니 일본 어체야. 조진이나 일본 어체야. 나디 진로 파보 쓴다 간다 지 진로든 저 단에 아니 일본 어체야지. 다 연구해야 돼. 다 안들디 근시 주주 뭐 소용도잖아요. 다 어디는 쌤 차와. 다들 누구 현지집에 사람도 말해 돼. 이내다 왜세 디릭디날래 거보다. 대안도 조진날이야. 르버도 릭셔니체. 루브르 셈디도 사mol로 릭셔체. 가자. 루브르 셈디디 리베 째체. 리베 째나 용서로라. 다 루브르 셔바 사mol로 리베 째체. 리베 째려 돼. 근데 인도산에 리베츠의 참절로래야 릭셰 켜져. 근데 인도산에 리벌이야 뭐르고 시르고 째지르고 되는 먹고서도 와. 자, 다른 가서 루브르에 독서 뭔도 들으신배 겁라야 대탐절로 리베츠에 샷데 스타 인도산에 대다라 릭셰 켜져. 릭셰 켜져 인도 난조베 라 유민등에지기 냠용부터 하네 녀몽모도 주변내걸래 녀몽기 거라 지기 난 진단적인 녀몽을 쳐그래 된데베다 녀몽지 민노적인 녀몽사디 민노적인 녀몽사도 깨유르잖아요 그 미베 제수 민장와 녀몽 되게 정신 터도 왜세 디가리야 로파 네트 체제 다 짐베 제수 민장와 뉴물 현지 계배 랑당지 인신제라 코랑게 정신 터도 뉴물 현지 계배 랑우 텔레야 저 정수로 심버지도 대베이나 아니 뉴모 마바 나수 탁세야 될 랭도가 이게 되셔 라라고 야말다 나 도스체니 또 디는 신체는 안 된디 헤디 셈줘야 다디 다네 애니 가사 주디 야라 군시 규규 라바 남도 참문디 뭐시비체 다 디니 애니 난조도 깨닝도 자네 시규 람기규 디 세베소 셔서 텔라 제주기 추금 마게샤네 유르자네 기술 세베소 주면 되게 인주 상하 라미 지스 상하게 학계 유르자네 동이 더버 손을 하샤와서 송도 와 양걸 하버는 정도가 라미기 동이 더버 손을 하샤와서 전에 동이 떡지게 로데 라버루브르 로데 마임바 뉴물 해지게 왜세 또 왜에 관해 왜세 뭐 쓰자네 실시 장배 고엔 저거 말해 왜세가 넘버 로리에 샤워체네 된대기 왜세 뉴물 해지게 티 동번이 가서다 동번면이 디니 신나가 나버려 샤데 버지 저도와 자 진리인데 동유도 손을 할 샤르셔야 돼 유도 오메가 그 손다데다 라미가 손다데 맨다 차티샤 단다데 맨다래 자다 도디님 뉴물 해지게 왜서 코레가는 산드는 거도와 학계에 그도네 다데네 림베기 조림기 까봐 야 레이드자네 다 롱숨을 내도는데 다 저롱 틀리를 내도는데 냠lên 때네 루브르에 샘디디마 팔라샤 팀 아니 지정기 루브르에 샘디마 가서 우리 그게 액티브 매버 차베 서디 아니 차 롱숨디디 액티브야 차야지 두스도 되게 와 다들 조진걸이나 라보 루브에 롱숨디 숙천문고도 주변 내가 올라야 릭샤에 캡데 여배인데 냠용게 심배이나 릭배 못 쳐야지 릭배 랑소 쓰면야지 송기야래 다 안다 상하 살매걸이나 왜세 땅바 하베 내가 때당 루브르에 샘던 데베 내가 릭버디 전에 무슨체 루브르에 샘디데 가베 지 릭버디 송 왜세 디송 어제는 인도산에 저런 틀리냐면들이 응원을 하고야 되네 이 말이. 자, 저 지면
사제.
사제 한다. 다들 셀동 순주 송돼야 돼. 셀와 샘지 천이. 동바 샘지人心. 셀동 순주 절제 시 송셔야 돼. 나한테 근시 교육의宽带 람숨 상화를 했어. 이 정도 그래졌으려나 근시 교육의 코르베 처탐제 체닉 주도 상 순주전에 다다 교육실은 안다 가서 올라변데 걸어 봤다. 탐해변데 걸어 봤다. 근데 이번 인도산에 대라 코르베 처탐자로 뭔도 준이 여바 인도산에 체닉 주도 상스. 다 람기 똑바디디 연된 주도 상스. 땅고 변한 거 아주 대바 지지 제실로 돼야 동유도에 실업 지지 시실로 돼야 나가는 신기지 다 있는 저 지수로 돼야 중국에 전에 되게 달고 시바디간에고 중루제도 와 시바디간에 용되기도 와 다들 전부씩 레이고를 받고 요원주대 중도가 되는 인도산에 람기 가서 람기 취탐제 연된 수도 상 또서가 연대디디 중국 수도 상스 중국 이런 수도 상스 어디서 소리 자 저는 인도산에 근시 규규 관대 열매 송샤다 대간 레기도 와 자자 어디서 저샤다 저 다들 다들 좀 다시 다 가다 뉴물 sorry now too long no
So the Sakya tradition traces its the lineage of its instruction to the Indian master Virapa or Virvapa, and the key instruction of the Sakya school is known as the Lamdre cycle of teachings, path and its fruits, and path and its fruition teachings, Lamdre teachings, and these Lamdre cycle of teachings are principally based upon a cycle of Vajrayana text known as the He Vajra Tantra. And the key idea in that cycle of teachings is the notion of three types of continuum, and referred to as the three tantras. And one is the causal tantra, the basis of all, and then the causal tantra, the explanation of the causal tantra, and the instruction based upon this is presented in the form of what are known as the three appearances and also three tantras. The three appearances here correspond to the non-Vajrayana teachings. For example, the teachings deal with what are known as the perspectives of afflicted mental states, cleansing of the afflicted mental states, perspectives, the teachings corresponding to the cleansing of the impure perspectives or impure appearances, and then finally cultivation of the pure appearances. So these correspond roughly to the external teachings, such as the teachings of the disciple vehicle, the self-enlightened one's vehicle, and the bodhisattva vehicle. And however, the central focus of the teaching is really on understanding and cultivation of the qualities of this basic causal tantra, the Kunshi Gyugyu. And so there is in the Sakya Lamdre teaching an explanation of a method of a practice where the three tantras are brought into some kind of mixture or fusion. And so this and the idea of the basic causal tantra is analogous to this idea of fundamental innate mind of clear light, which in the Dzogchen terminology is referred to as the basic awareness that is the Samantrabhadra, the primordial mind. And so, however, the instruction for bringing about a realization of that basic causal continuum is done through an experiential process in the Sakya school. For example, Sakya Pandita makes the statement that he says that in between the arising of different thought processes, the arising of a clear light mind, a radiant clear light mind, remains uninterrupted. So what he is saying is that, for example, if you observe the mind, your own thought processes one follow after another as if in a kind of a sequence, but in between the arising of one thought and the dissolving of that and arising of another, there are interval, regardless of how short they may be, but there are intervals between the transitions of different thought arising of thought processes. And so the practice involves trying to tease out those transitional periods so that one can recognize these gaps in the arising of another thought and dissolution and arising of another thought. And so this is done through a cultivation of a particular meditation practice, which is found also in the Giluk and the Kagyu Mahamudra teachings as well, where one seeks to cultivate an ability to simply focus on the present moment of consciousness. So this involves deliberately refraining from chasing after any thoughts that look back retrospectively into some kind of memory or recollections and so on, nor chasing one's mind after some kind of future anticipatory experiences, some kind of future directed oriented thought processes. So one refrains from both looking backwards into the past nor into the future through anticipation and hopes and so on, but remains simply in the present moment. So initially, what one experiences is simply a kind of an absence or a gap, but through experience, as one learns to prolong that period of this absence, of the simply remaining focused in the present moment, at that time one comes to recognize the subtle thought processes. And this is, although not exactly the actual clear light state of mind, but it is somewhat belonging or indicative of that basic clear light mind. And for example, in the Dzogchen teachings, it is through this kind of practice one cultivates what is called a sense of wonderment. Simply being aware of the present state and just remaining in that state with a total wonderment and a sense of wonder. And then from this sense of wonder, one leads to a real experience of Rigpa awareness. So this is what Dzapedul Rinpoche, for example, explains. So in the Sakya Lamdre cycle of teachings, although that kind of language is not used, but the basic idea is to really cultivate that present moment awareness with a sense of wonder, where one does not let one's mind follow after the temptation of looking into the past or into the future, but simply remaining in that present moment of consciousness. As one learns to remain simply focused on the present moment of consciousness, then one allows for the natural quality of the mind to express itself, and the natural quality of the mind is clear light. So this is the instruction that is found in the Sakya cycle of teachings. Now, of course, in the Dzogchen Great Perfection teachings, there is a recognition that even when the gross levels of thought processes are occurring, like when, for example, when a strong afflicted state of mind arises, even at that point, given that all of these mental processes are in some sense expressions of this basic Rigpa awareness, and they are referred to as effulgences or expressions or manifestations of Rigpa awareness. Therefore, even the most afflicted state of minds are permeated by the quality of a basic quality of awareness. So in Dzogchen Great Perfection instructions, there is a technique where while the afflicted state arises, one learns not to follow after the grasping and clinging that normally tends to arise with these afflicted mental states. So while, when the afflicted mental state arises, one refrains from following after the grasping tendency, but rather, maintains one's focus simply on the bare awareness dimension of that experience, and through this way affect the actualization of the Rigpa awareness. So this is a unique method found in the Great Perfection teachings, whereas in the New Translation School teachings, the principal approach is to utilize various techniques to withdraw the grosser levels of mind and energy, and so that the subtler levels of consciousness and energy can become more manifest. Because when the sensory and the thought processes are active, then the subtler level of consciousness remains inactive, and through manipulation of the physiological forces such as the channels and the energy that flows within them and the drops and so on, one learns to withdraw both grosser level of consciousness and the energy, and then allow for the subtle levels of consciousness to arise. So that's the principal approach found in the New Translation School. So this is, in fact, one of the key approaches of the Sakya school of teaching, where it talks about the union of clarity and emptiness. And here, clarity refers to the clear light, and emptiness to the emptiness quality. So in this, it says that the clarity is the defining characteristic of the nature of mind, and emptiness is the ultimate reality of mind. And through the union of the two, one attains the realization. And also this kind of practice teaching is also referred to as the indivisibility of nirvana and samsara, because in this basic causal continuum, all the attributes of both samsara and nirvana are present. All the attributes of samsara, the cyclic existence, are present in the form of actual characteristics that we experience, and all the attributes of the path are present in the form of qualities of the mind, and all the attributes of the result are contained in the form of potentials. So therefore, this Gunshin Gyugyu, the basic causal tantra or continuum is understood to be a form of an indivisibility of both enlightenment and unenlightened state.
Okay. So perhaps some question. Already here?
Your Holiness, these questions were submitted through the internet.
Yes.
And Professor Cabazon handed them to me. The first question is, in my reading of some of His Holiness's books, I have sometimes seen the subtlemost nature of mind characterized as neutral. But in other instances, it seems as though His Holiness says that we have an innate predisposition for goodness, for love, for compassion, and for enlightenment. So this would seem to imply that the fundamental nature of mind is positive or virtuous, but not neutral. Can Your Holiness please explain?
In generally, of course, we are not talking about ultimate reality or subtle mind. As far as subtle mind is concerned, this moment, just a word. So our basic sort of human nature. The way I think in afternoon session, I think I may explain something.
Okay.
So those people who will not come
This afternoon.
the next session, then you can ask someone who attends.
Second question, Your Holiness. Is there some reason to prefer meditation on the nature of mind to meditation on anything else? For example, meditation on the nature of self or other phenomena?
그렇다. 심갈.
Simply,
그렇죠. That's mainly she refer in tantric teaching, tantric practice. The reason is, as I mentioned at the beginning, ultimately things depend on our motivation. Motivation is part of mind. So therefore, penalty 가서 좋지. 심리기는 심전직내당 뇌지직내시도 나도 그 로마를 내려 개발서 선만을 내게 개만인스.
So, for example, in one Buddhist text, Chandrakirti, 7th century, he says that it is the mind that creates the world that we live in, and it is the mind that creates the actions that lead to that creation. And therefore, in this way, we understand the karmic action to be the causal agent for creation.
다안다 되게 세동 송주사 릭동 열매 대동 열매 사게지도아 디 춘이 버치버리디 다 베나 세동 송주사 릭동 열매 세사게 동니디 머신 분배된 그 동니다 가서 벤 유구되게 동니다 동니 임베 뭐네 찍버리디 이네 최전 싸워다 뭐예매도 들어왔으니디 코랑 되게 신이 상당 걸로 안다디 랑기 랑신디 랑기 다 가서 우리 보게 또배 주지 못해 되는지 자 근데 인도산에 심지 춘이 가는 상담마다 믿어봐 릭동예매 상담 오마티 So the name in the Sane, Penanda sound the Aryan Deve, remain now the Sungyari, Simji Chuni, the dog, the huge catch me image. Contact out is Sunya, or that the not the shake on. Don't do any shabby, just up in a target, Chezeng in Nagi, the tribute dog law you have Chane, Toma Kasak Damicom. Then a church Damicom said, Jism Sungyari. Now, let me the day to Sane, in just simply the corner you want to show a shabby.
So, therefore, we have been for example, we have been talking about the union of clarity and emptiness, union of Rigpa awareness and emptiness, a union of bliss and emptiness. So all of these are really perspectives coming from the Vajrayana teachings. And therefore, in Vajrayana teaching, the meditation on emptiness, on the mind itself, the nature of mind itself, becomes very important. Because although one can take the emptiness of, say, an external object like a sprout and meditate upon it, but the distinction here is that when one takes the mind to be the basis upon which one meditates on emptiness, then one is actually reflecting upon the nature of one's own mind, the ultimate nature of one's own mind. And all of this is really from the perspective of Vajrayana teaching. For example, in one of Aryadeva's texts on Tantra, he explains the significance of taking a mind, the nature of mind, as the focus of one's practice in the Vajrayana context. However, in a non-Vajrayana context, such as the perfection of wisdom teachings, then generally it is said that between the emptiness of the person and emptiness of phenomena, one generally takes the emptiness of person to be the initial focus, because it is easier to understand emptiness by taking one's own personal identity or person to be the basis of meditating upon emptiness.
But one sort of the Sanskrit word usually we recite, that is Om Shunada Jnana Banza Sumbawa Emakohang. These Sumbawa say Rangshi Sanshtua. Or that the Kang Gumju Nelu the Chishen Korang Rangshimba.
So, in this mantra that is part of the Vajrayana sadhana practice, there's the word Svabhava, which means nature. And Svabhava, in this particular context, indicates meditating upon the Svabhava of the mind itself, the very mind which is meditating upon its own nature.
So, Om Sumbawa should Sawa Dama, Sumbawa should hang Sayagi, Sumbawa Sayadida, Om Shuna the Janama Sumbawa Sayakar, Tundar Karadwa.
So, the Svabhava in these two different contexts are different. One is Svabhava of the nature of all phenomena, whereas in another context, Svabhava or nature refers to the nature of the mind meditating upon itself.
Yeah, next.
I'm wondering if you think it is a lot more difficult for Americans to focus their minds and to be able to reach enlightenment. That focus chair, the Kanga chair metros, and these are the Kanda Totobiele Kanga chair metros. We are a culture that thrives on stimulation, excitement, pleasure, and doing everything very quickly. I think that meditation and centering oneself is extremely difficult in American society. Do you think it would be easier for Americans if we lived in a country with a slower pace, where people took more time being present in their daily life?
Basically, I don't think there's much differences, whether Eastern or Western. I don't think much differences. In fact, some of my American friends who spent years of meditation, said their result quite amazing. So these are American, not Tibetan. So that shows basically same human mind, as the external influence, important, but ultimately, the nature of mind itself is more important. So everyone have sort of same potential, and I think same mental quality. I think like that. That's how I feel. But then someone, I think this questioner, if you're really serious, then thorough investigation, interview more people, then maybe you get more clearer picture. I don't think it's much differences.
Final question.
I think 2-3 questions.
Okay. Why did you say Buddhism is like a science of the mind?
That word not originally come from me, but some Western scholar, describe. Buddhism is not a religion, but rather a science of mind. So ask him, ask them. Yes.
How do you feel about the use of LSD and other psychedelic drugs to attain higher states of consciousness or spirituality?
Of course, firstly, I have no such experience. Then according to those people who have some experience, then it seems
But from what I've heard from people who have had the actual first-hand experience, it seems that the experience of using these kind of psychedelic drugs tend to bring a greater profusion of illusion. And since we already have a lot of illusory experiences to begin with, so why do we need additional illusory experiences?
Then next. I think in serious practice is concerned, I think should not rely on external substances. Just to simply try to
Cultivate the mind.
Cultivate
the mind, yeah.
the nature quality of mind. That's much better.
And a happy heart.
That answer is to come later.
In the afternoon. In your 50 years of exile, you have faced down many hardships and never wavering in your commitment to your people and the fight for social justice. What advice do you have for young people on how to achieve success while staying true to one's moral principles?
Afternoon.
So most of the questions are more general.
Now stop.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.